Something is happening in the vaults deep beneath Moscow. Away from the glare of television cameras and the noise of international diplomacy, Russia is quietly undertaking one of the largest and fastest accumulations of a single asset in modern history. It is not building more tanks, at least not in the way we can see. It is not launching new satellites, at least not the kind we can track. Instead, the Russian Federation is buying gold. Ton by ton, bar by bar. It is building a fortress of shimmering metal. The scale is, honestly, breathtaking. The pace is relentless. And the motive? Well, that remains the Kremlin's most closely guarded secret. A puzzle that has financial analysts and heads of state asking a deeply unsettling question. What does Vladimir Putin know that we don't? This is not a simple matter of diversifying a nation's assets. This is a strategic move, executed with a precision that suggests a long-term calculated plan. For over a decade, while the West was preoccupied with the digital economy and the rise of cryptocurrencies, Russia was looking backward to move forward. It was turning to the oldest, most tangible store of value known to civilization. This deliberate pivot toward gold is a signal, a message written not in ink but in bullion. The sheer volume of these purchases forces us to look beyond simple economic explanations and consider far more dramatic possibilities. A silent economic war is being waged, and Russia is arming itself with an ancient weapon. The implications of this strategy are profound, reaching far beyond the borders of Russia itself. It challenges the very foundations of the post-World War II global financial system. To grasp the magnitude of Russia's strategy, one must look at the data. The numbers are stark and tell an unambiguous story of intent. As of our current date in late 2025, the Central Bank of Russia holds over 2,400 metric tons of gold. This figure alone is staggering, but it is the trajectory of growth that truly reveals the scale of the operation. In 2007, just before the global financial crisis, Russia's reserves stood at a modest 400 tons. This means that in under 2 decades, the Kremlin has added a staggering 2,000 tons of gold to its vaults, a 6-fold increase. This is not a gradual drift. It is a full-throttle sprint toward gold accumulation, a deliberate and sustained policy that has weathered economic sanctions, oil price volatility, geopolitical turmoil. When placed in a global context, Russia's position becomes even more significant. Its reserves now surpass those of economic powerhouses like Switzerland and, most notably, China, whose official holdings have been a source of intense speculation. Russia has firmly cemented its place among the top 5 gold-holding nations in the world, a club dominated by the United States, Germany, Italy, France. However, unlike these Western nations, whose holdings have been relatively static for decades, Russia is the only major power actively and aggressively increasing its stockpile. It has transformed itself from a minor player in the gold market into a dominant force, single-handedly influencing global demand. What is equally telling is what Russia has been selling to fund these purchases. For years, the Central Bank of Russia has been systematically dumping its holdings of U.S. Treasury bonds. In 2018, Russia held nearly $100 billion in U.S. debt. Today, that figure is negligible, close to zero. The message could not be clearer. The most immediate and widely accepted theory for Russia's gold obsession is defensive. It is about building an impenetrable economic fortress. Since 2014 and escalating dramatically in 2022, the West has used economic sanctions as its primary weapon against Russian aggression. These measures have targeted banks, corporations, individuals. Most critically, they have frozen hundreds of billions of dollars of the Russian central bank's foreign currency reserves held abroad. For the Kremlin, this was a shocking demonstration of the US dollar's power as a tool of geopolitical coercion. They learned a hard lesson. Any asset held in a foreign bank or denominated in a foreign currency can be taken away with the stroke of a pen. In this context, gold is the ultimate sanctions-proofing asset. Unlike US Treasury bonds or euro-denominated accounts, physical gold bullion stored in vaults in Moscow or St. Petersburg is under Russia's direct sovereign control. Gold provides that solution. A more radical and, honestly, alarming theory suggests that Russia's gold accumulation is not merely defensive. It may be an offensive bet against the future of the US dollar itself. Proponents of this view argue that the Kremlin sees deep structural weaknesses in the American economy and the global financial system that it underpins. Decades of massive U.S. government debt, relentless money printing by the Federal Reserve, rising geopolitical challenges to American dominance are seen as signs of an empire in decline. In this scenario, the dollar's status as the world's primary reserve currency is not guaranteed to last forever. Russia, therefore, is not just protecting itself, it is positioning itself to profit from a potential collapse. This perspective views Russia's actions as a calculated wager that a day of reckoning is coming for the US dollar. A crisis of confidence triggered by unsustainable debt levels or a major geopolitical event could lead to a flight from the dollar, causing its value to plummet. In such a world, nations and investors would scramble for a safe haven, a reliable store of value. Historically, that safe haven has always been gold. By accumulating thousands of tons of bullion now, while it is still priced in dollars, Russia is effectively shorting the dollar and going long on global chaos. If and when the system cracks, Russia would emerge as one of the world's most solvent nations, its wealth preserved in gold while others are left holding worthless paper. Beyond defense and speculation lies an even more ambitious theory that Russia is not acting alone. This line of thinking posits that the gold accumulation is part of a coordinated, long-term strategy with China. Both Russia and China share a deep-seated desire to challenge the US-led global order. Both have been targets of American economic pressure, and both have been steadily increasing their gold reserves. The theory suggests they are laying the groundwork for a new financial system, one that is not dependent on the US dollar. At the heart of this new system could be a new currency, or maybe a basket of currencies backed by a physical asset, gold. The logic is compelling. A gold-backed currency would offer a credible alternative to the US dollar, which is backed only by the full faith and credit of the US government, a faith that Moscow and Beijing no longer share. By combining their massive gold reserves, Russia and China could create a financial bloc with immense credibility. This would allow them and other countries wishing to join their sphere of influence, perhaps within the BRICS plus framework, to trade for oil, gas, minerals without ever touching the US dollar. This would strike at the very heart of American global power, which is inextricably linked to the dollar's role in international trade. This Golden Alliance would represent a fundamental restructuring of the global economy. It would create a bipolar financial world. Russia's gold is not just for Russia, it is a foundational pillar for a new economic world order. To truly understand Russia's modern obsession with gold, one must look to its history. The Soviet Union, the predecessor to the Russian Federation, had a deep and often desperate relationship with precious metals and natural resources. During the darkest days of the Cold War, gold was not just a financial asset, it was a strategic weapon. The USSR used its gold reserves to fund its industrialization, to finance its military-industrial complex, to pay for critical grain imports when its centrally planned agricultural system failed. Gold was the ultimate hard currency that could buy what the non-convertible ruble could not. It was a tool for survival in a world where the USSR was economically isolated. This historical memory runs deep in the psyche of the Russian establishment. Leaders who came of age during the Soviet era, including many in the current Kremlin administration, remember the power that tangible resources commanded. They also remember the chaos of the 1990s, when the Soviet Union collapsed and Russia's economy was in freefall. During that time, the country's wealth was plundered and its financial sovereignty was lost. The lesson learned was clear and brutal. Financial dependence on the West is a vulnerability, and paper promises are fleeting. Real power resides in physical assets that you can hold and control: oil, gas, and above all, gold. The Soviet approach to resource management was one of hoarding and strategic deployment. Resources were not just for economic growth, but for national security and geopolitical leverage. For Russia, that means trusting gold. Russia's silent accumulation of gold has not gone unnoticed. In the corridors of power in Washington, London, Brussels' Western governments' intelligence agencies are watching Russia's actions with intense scrutiny, trying to decipher the ultimate motive behind this massive financial maneuver. Publicly, officials often downplay the significance, framing it as a predictable move by a sanctioned nation. But privately, conversations among policymakers and financial experts reveal a deeper anxiety. They see it as a clear and present challenge to the established global financial order that has guaranteed Western dominance for decades. Financial experts from the International Monetary Fund and the Bank for International Settlements have issued cautious warnings. They note that while Russia's actions alone are not enough to dethrone the dollar, they are part of a broader, accelerating trend of de-dollarization among non-Western countries. This slow-motion corrosion of the dollar's status is what worries them most. Russia is not just acting for itself. It is setting an example for other nations who may also wish to reduce their dependence on the United States financial system. The fear is of a contagion effect, where Russia's bold move emboldens others to follow suit, creating a cascade that could genuinely threaten the dollar's supremacy. The response from Western governments has been a mixture of strategic monitoring and subtle countermeasures. There have been discussions about finding new ways to restrict Russia's ability to transact in gold, though this is incredibly difficult once the bullion is physically located within Russian territory. The whispers in the halls of power are growing louder, asking if the West has underestimated Russia's strategic patience and its capacity to challenge the foundations of global finance. We stand at a precipice, looking out at a financial landscape that is shifting beneath our feet. For nearly a century, the world has operated on a set of rules written in Washington and denominated in United States dollars. This system powered the global economy, fostered unprecedented trade, and served as the bedrock of American power. But Russia's quiet, relentless accumulation of gold is a tremor, a warning that the bedrock may not be as solid as we believed. The thousands of tons of bullion being stacked in Moscow's vaults are more than just a hedge against sanctions. They are a fundamental challenge to the status quo. The theories we have explored, building a sanctions-proof fortress, betting on the dollar's collapse, forging a new gold-backed alliance with China, funding a future conflict, are not mutually exclusive. It is likely that Russia's strategy is a complex weave of all these motives. It is a multi-layered plan designed to give the Kremlin maximum flexibility and resilience in an increasingly uncertain and hostile world. Gold is the common denominator, the one asset that serves all these potential ends. It is a shield, a sword, and the potential foundation for something entirely new, all at the same time. The ultimate question remains unanswered, hanging heavy in the air of every central bank and finance ministry around the globe. We are left with a suspenseful and deeply consequential cliffhanger, written in 2,400 tons of gold and counting. Could the global economy, the very system that has governed our lives for generations, be about to change forever? We may not know the answer until the dawn of this new order is already upon us.